late coming on, we'll let them in. My name is Cicely. I am the managing director at the Relationship Foundation. We work with schools and organizations to introduce the adverse childhood experiences study and also how to mitigate the trauma that often comes with those adverse experiences. One approach to this is to introduce the practice of helping people learn how to express their needs and feelings without blame and judgment, and how to listen empathically. And that's called nonviolent communication. Perhaps that's something you've heard of. And both of these subjects are actually explored much more in depth through our workshops and our curriculum, as well as our book, which is currently for free on our website. So if you haven't visited our website yet, welcome to do so. We'd love to have you download that, take a look at it. And the material in our workshops is applicable really to any organization or school. And each one is tailored to any organization that books a workshop with us. And also we do offer discounts to anyone who has attended one of our webinars. So if you do decide to book a workshop with us, let us know you attended and we will hook you up. We will be putting a survey in the chat toward the end of the presentation where you can provide some feedback on the webinar, as well as to request any information about booking a workshop for your organization or school. And also we are a nonprofit, and so we do rely on the support of our friends. So as you can see on my little screen here, well, we do have a couple of easy ways people can donate. We like to keep our webinars free just so anybody can access them, but anything people can do to help is greatly appreciated. So it is tax deductible because we're a 501c3, so you'll get a tax receipt in an email as soon as you send it. So any support is very much appreciated. And that's really it. So we're so glad everybody could join us tonight, and we hope you enjoy this presentation. So right now I'll introduce Michael Jazz, our executive director, and let him say a few words, and we'll get on the roll.
All right, good to see everybody. Over the last couple of years, we've been working mostly with schools, but lately we've been working with community organizations, a hospital, and now we've worked with several groups who work with prisoners, both inside and outside of the prison. And we've given trainings to counselors who work inside in Rikers Island. And just last week, we gave a workshop for a very large organization with 100 staff members that serve people on parole and probation. And they assist them with counseling support and various reentry services. And most recently, due to the virus, we've been able to give workshops for schools virtually, and we've now been in over 450 schools, which is more than a quarter of the schools in New York City. And the last Tuesday of every month, we give a workshop on nonviolent communication. And that's the cornerstone of our work. And next Tuesday, we're going to be giving the NVC workshop. It's called Surviving the Holidays with NVC. So for those of you familiar, you probably have a good idea how it can be helpful. And so we also, our book, I saw someone on the chat was asking about the book. It's on our website. It's trfrachelfrancine.net. And we have a .org, but it's much longer. So trf.net. You can download the book there. And if you have any issues with that, you can email us. Okay. And also feel free to stay on after this workshop is over and introduce yourself, and let's meet each other. People are here from as far away as Alaska and all over the states. And if you can stay for a little bit, say who you are, what work you're doing. Maybe it'll turn out there's someone that you want to work with who's here tonight, and we can build our community as well. And I would like to introduce now our colleague, Casey Regal. She's a writer and a researcher, and she works with us at the Relationship Foundation. And she is going to give us the presentation this evening. Go ahead,
yes.
Casey.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope what I'm about to share will support you to reconnect with the power of empathy. And with the reckoning of social justice, look for this inclusive term to become part of social awareness. Black, Indigenous, People of Color, BIPOC, because these people represent the majority of the prison population. 91% of approximately 2 to 3 million prisoners will serve their sentence and then be released back into society. How will they cope? How can we understand the trauma these men and women have been through and then give them the tools to succeed as they re-enter society? Our work focuses on introducing background on trauma and how awareness of its prevalence is the first step to mitigating its effects. Ultimately, this will ensure that future generations will have the mental and physical strength to establish healthy and fulfilling lives. Today, we will introduce background on the Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACEs study. This was a comprehensive research study conducted in the mid-90s that revealed the immense presence of trauma in our population, even more so amongst those incarcerated. This trauma can be mitigated by establishing a safety net for children, as well as adults suffering from the effects of adverse childhood experiences. One of the key outcomes of this study was the ACE questionnaire, which was sent out in your reminder email that you received earlier. Out of this study, trauma-informed awareness is being introduced in prisons through compassionate action, thanks to people like Fritzi Horstman and the Compassion Prison Project. We will discuss her work further in this presentation. She has been working with prison populations and state governments to make these institutions trauma-informed. Over the last 10 years, the Relationship Foundation has developed a curriculum called Healthy Relationships 101. City teachers, social workers, and counselors have collaborated in the development of it. After the presentation, if you go to our website, trf.net, on our impact page, you will see comments from professionals with whom we've worked. You can also reach out to us at info@trf.net, which is on this slide. We'll show you this again at the end of the presentation. We'll also be holding a short Q&A at the end, so feel free to put in any questions and or comments as they come up, and we'll address them as we go or during the Q&A at the end. We will also stay beyond the end time to discuss whatever anyone wants to share. According to the CDC, adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are traumatic events that occur during childhood. ACEs can include violence, abuse, or growing up in a family with mental illness or substance use problems. Toxic stress from ACEs can change brain development and affect how the body responds to stress. ACEs are linked to chronic health problems, mental illness, and substance misuse, etc., in adulthood. ACEs have a tremendous impact on future violence, victimization, and perpetration. But these can be avoided with care and compassion that has begun to come into the prison system through work such as the Compassion Prison Project. Through work such as this, the effect of ACEs can be mitigated. Please take a moment to reflect on the way that ACEs may have impacted your life. If you are open to it, think about your own ACEs. How many do you think you have? Giving this consideration is the beginning of what can be the start of the healing that can take place. Some ACEs are listed on the slide right now. Many of us have experienced one or more ACEs. For instance, being in a home where a divorce is unfolding can be traumatic to children as they absorb the violence, whether it's physical, verbal, or punishing silence. ACEs are overwhelming to fragile, unprotected little children and are subversive elements in our bodies. But awareness is an important first step to know how trauma presents itself in our lives. When I became aware of my own ACEs, it helped me exercise empathy for those who have experienced far more trauma than I have, and how it has potentially threatened their happiness and security in this life. Today, I'd like to highlight the likelihood of incarceration amongst BI-POC people, for many of whom their childhoods are deeply affected by trauma. Over the course of this study, volumes of clinical records provided statistics on health issues. Young children exposed to 5 or more ACEs in the first 3 years of childhood face a 76% likelihood of having 1 or more delays in their language, emotional, or brain development. With an ACE score of 4 or more, there's a risk of lung disease increasing 4 times, cancer and stroke doubling, depression increases 4 times, committing suicide increases 12 times, and incarceration increases 7 times. The CDC says that ACEs are the #1 health crisis in this country and the least known. Why? We don't want to talk about our shame. Here's the science: amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is critical to learning, processing, and emotional and impulse regulation. You may have heard of the term emotional regulation. We call this emotional management. The fear response, otherwise known as fight, flight, and freeze, originates in the amygdala. The hippocampus is responsible for long and short-term memory. In response to trauma, the hippocampus shrinks. The prefrontal cortex is crucial for logic, reasoning, planning, empathy, and impulse control. People with ACEs are not able to control their impulses because their prefrontal cortex does not fully develop due to the release of cortisol and adrenaline that are activated in the presence of trauma. They are actually out of their minds. Instinctual actions become personal reality. This is who we think we are. Can you start to connect the relationship of trauma and incarceration? Toxic stress over time damages neural pathways. So ACEs puts a person in constant state of survival, which governs reasoning, logic, planning, managing stress, and impulse control. Once the stress response is activated, it causes the brain stem to speed up the heart rate and breathing, and blood pressure increases. When people are constantly living dangerously close to their breaking point, they can only function in survival mode. Toxic stress over time damages neural pathways, but brain architecture can be restored when a person experiences safety and stability. This is what fosters resilience, and more positive behaviors become habitual. To develop the brain muscles to do this, we can educate the public about the science of the ACEs, how toxic stress from these experiences damages the brain, the body, and the spirit. However, when resilience emerges, the brain and body can start to become whole and healthy. When we put all of this together, we can see that disruptive people don't have a behavior problem, they have a brain problem. People with ACEs respond to the world as a place of constant danger. ACEs are a root cause of disruptive behaviors, which are actually coping mechanisms. Again, are you starting to see the connection between ACEs and incarceration? Children experience environmental failure as their own failure. A simple example: if a child grows up with unloving parents, he or she is unable to see that this is their parents' failure. Children tend to develop the belief that they are unlovable. Here's another example. Disruptive children are labeled as troublemakers, but labeling a student in this way can lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy in which the student accepts that identity, and it increases the prevalence and severity of their misbehavior. These judgments may lead to a child being constantly under teacher scrutiny, facing punishments, or receiving poor grades, thus creating a cycle of trauma that follows them throughout their life. Survival styles are adaptive, representing success, not pathology. However, because the brain uses the past to predict the future, these survival patterns remain fixed in our nervous system and create an adaptive but inauthentic identity. Just one caring, stable adult can affect change in a child's brain chemistry and healthy development. Healthy, thriving relationships drive brain development, and science has proven that such relationships can defer consequences such as incarceration. Next, I'd like us all to watch a video from the Compassion Prison Project entitled "Step Inside the Circle." It will likely give you a better understanding of the relevance and consistency of trauma in every incarcerated individual.
It's time now, everyone. We're gonna do the compassion trauma circle. Is everyone ready to face their past with compassion? Is that a yes? While you were growing up, during your first 18 years of life, if a parent or other adult in the household often or very often would swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, step inside the circle. If a parent or other adult in the household often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or threw something at you, step inside the circle. If a parent or other adult in the household often or very often ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured, step inside the circle. If you often felt that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, step inside the circle. If your family lived in extreme poverty, step inside the circle. Step inside the circle. Step inside the circle. Step inside the circle.
There is no shame. There is no shame.
I'm so good. Good to see you. How are you? Amen. Noel, good to see you. Welcome. I was abused as a young girl. I was beaten by my mother. I was verbally abused by my mother. I was sexually abused by another man. My father was an alcoholic. My mother was a rageaholic. I've driven drunk. I've sold drugs. I was a juvenile delinquent. Probably my story is similar to most of your stories in here. I'm white and I'm female and nothing happened to me. So, I got a get out of jail free card. And so I'm here now because I see myself in every one of you.
I'm a traumatized child, raised by a traumatized child. My mother was traumatized as well as her parents.
Like he said, we wasn't born in the world of being evil people. My mother didn't want me. She hid her pregnancy. She tried to flush me down the toilet. But as I learned about these things, I always asked myself what was wrong with me.
When I come to the circle and I see everybody else and she's reading off the questions and people stepping in further, and I look at my childhood and I'm like, a lot of these people in this yard are just like me.
There was one step I should have taken that I didn't take, and I saw some of my brothers and my friends take that step, and I felt like such a coward. I wasn't brave enough to be there with them when they took that step. And every round after that, I took the most difficult step.
Our traumas kept us separated. We were all on the circumference, all standing apart. But once we began to acknowledge our traumas publicly, it brought us all closer together.
In prison, you're not supposed to show your weaknesses in prison, though. But to want to do that, to walk in that circle like that, and to take each step forward was a reminder to ourselves that we still have a humanity and we worthy to be loved, though. Most people on the outside don't understand that we want to change so we can re-enter society better than what we left it.
And I think one of the things that when you was yelling at no shame and you had us yelling it out, it was freeing us too. And it was a point to where when I was looking at that and we was all looking at it in a circle, you can hear that echo, no shame. And that was very powerful, especially coming from a little lady like you.
I'm 76 years old. I've seen a lot. I don't like talking. I like to meet people that understand what's happening without words, and you one of them. Today has been one of the best days I had in my whole entire entire life since I've been locked up these 40 years.
Your true spirits are not violent. Your true spirits are magnificent.
Well, in conclusion, I hope as a society we can begin to fade our judgments against people who have been incarcerated and exercise empathy with the knowledge that these men and women have endured trauma. We can contribute to their well-being by putting our conditioned judgments into perspective and to better understand the long-lasting effects of childhood trauma and how to mitigate them. And then here is our contact information once again.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you so much, Casey. That was wonderful. I've seen that video so many times and it still strikes me every single time I watch it. So thank you, Casey, and thank you everybody for joining us. We can stay on for a while to have some questions and discussion. So please feel free to stay on if you're able to. Check the chat for a survey. Actually, I need to put that up right now. We do have a survey just where you can give us some feedback on the presentation. And then if you are possibly interested in bringing a workshop that will go into more detail on the subject and so much more, you can ask about that. So feel free to put your information in the survey if you're interested in that. And so yeah, and then again, of course, if you enjoyed this, we'd appreciate any help in helping us to keep our free series going. So we'd be very thrilled with that. I see somebody asking about PowerPoint. We can probably try to get that sent out to everybody. It might take a little bit to get it out, but we do have this on our YouTube channel as well. So you can go back and watch it again and see it again later if that's helpful, or if you need to, or if you want to share it with anybody. But yeah, we will try to send an email out to everybody that registered, hopefully with the slide deck for everyone.
Okay.
So I think we can probably,
before we open it up, and thanks everyone. I'm glad it's good to see everybody staying here, and thanks for your comments also. We never really know how many people who join us are familiar with the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. It's spreading around the country very rapidly. It began with a study that was done in the mid 90s with over 17,000 people, and it began as a study in a weight loss clinic. And the people who were coming there were losing a lot of weight, but then dropping out. And the researcher's name was Dr. Vincent Folletti, went out to speak with people and ask them some questions. And he found that a lot of the people, especially the women, had taken off the weight and gained it back because they wanted to cover up because of abuse. And so this was sort of the birth of the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. And what's really remarkable is that a principal in Walla Walla, Washington State, went to a talk on brain science. He was the principal of a school where kids went who got suspended, and it was an environment where there were drugs and teen pregnancy and bullying and gangs and meth, and kids would get in trouble and he would have to suspend them. But he went to a talk on brain science and found out that about the ACEs study, and realized, he came back to his school, he said, well, hey, we're doing it all wrong. And so now when a kid would say F you to the teacher, instead of throwing him out for 5 days and saying, what's wrong with you? They would say, what's going on with you? It would be, well, my mom's not around, my dad's drinking, there's domestic violence. Kids would calm down, apologize to their teachers. And over a 3-year period, suspension days went from 796 to 135. Graduation rates went up 5 times. And the story about this school is there's probably been more than 1 million, maybe a couple million views about it. And it's in our book if you want to read about the school. Our book's on the website. It's the chapter on ACEs and the trauma-informed school movement. but this is also coming, we're working with a director of culture and diversity, an MD at Mount Sinai Hospital here in New York. And we've just also worked with prison counseling organizations. And we're being contacted by schools all over the country. And now with things being remote, there's actually still a degree of social cruelty and behavior that's disruptive. And as teachers understand about this, especially for when they get back in person to person, it gives them a different perspective. And as Casey said, that seeing kids that who are disruptive as kids who don't have a behavior problem, they have a brain problem. For all of you who are working with organizations, individuals where behavior is the issue and it causes problems with drug abuse or domestic violence, understanding that some of the most difficult people, and it's not just there, it's like, look at people in our society, our politicians, people who run corporations, are really at the effect of their early childhood brain development. And what we've come to understand, and which we're explaining in our workshops, is that in the very beginning, when a child is in its infancy and all the way pretty much up till like 6 years old, they're in the delta state. In other words, right now we're in beta state. We're thinking about what we're going to have for dinner. You may be listening to what I'm saying, but some other things are crossing your mind, what you might want to do in the future, memory of things, something that happened in the past. And then as we go to sleep, we drop into alpha and then theta and then delta, the deep sleep. Well, children are in delta with their eyes open. And so they're extremely sensitive. And that's where the ACEs really affect them and the healthy development of their brain architecture. And so understanding about this, especially with children, but really adults and people who are incarcerated, gives us just a broader perspective. And the work that we introduced that addresses this as well, it's called nonviolent communication. If you have heard of it, you probably know what the basics are, but we introduced this work and it's based on a book called Nonviolent Communication, and the author is Marshall Rosenberg. And we really highly recommend that book. You can read about the basics in our book, which are available at no charge on our website. But NVC, as it's called, is just a game changer. And it's changed the way I think and speak. I mean, I just don't have these knee-jerk reactions anymore, and the kids really take to it. And so do the teachers and people who are in organizations that we're working with. So next Tuesday, we'll be introducing the basics for the NVC. So we hope you can join us for that. We'll be talking more about the adverse childhood experiences. And we have a podcast that just went up. The person's name is Terry, T-E-R-I, Wellbrock. And that was an interview I did. And I'm going to have to say that it's strange, but I was almost on the verge of tears listening to myself because it was just such a great exchange between the woman who runs the podcast and her interest in this work. And we're really dedicated to helping out and trying to offer information and doing our best to offer information that can help people and organizations. So yeah, if anybody has any questions or comments, or please, say hello, say who you are, where you're from. People are, as I said, are from the other side of the country. And if you want to turn on your microphone and introduce yourself, say what you do, because otherwise you're going to have to listen to me for the next 2 hours. And that's, I'm sure Cicely will cut me off. She's in Winslow, Arizona. She's essentially co-directing the project now, and it's just been amazing to work with her. And what's happened is we usually have 3 or 4 interns in our office here in the East Village in New York, but with the virus, everyone is remote. So we have 12 people, 12 different interns. Some have graduated, some are in school, and it's just been an amazing period for us in the midst of all this, the challenges that we're facing. So hi, so please say hello and say who you are and anything you got out of this, anything you think that maybe if we got something incorrect, please, let us know, because we see ourselves as equals with everybody, no matter where you're from and what you're doing, because for us, it's a daily learning process.
Yeah,
I would like to say,
yeah, go for it.
I'm sorry, I would like to say thank you to you guys for making this information available to us. And, we're working with, I work for an ISD in Texas, and I have a behavior alternative campus. So the kids who are expelled and who are suspended from school come to me for between 30 days to 75 days or until they graduate. And some of them, are working with significant ACEs in their past, and we're just learning about it, and we're just exploring it, and how we can build resilience in our schools. But I just wanted to say thank you for making this public so we could learn from you guys.
Well, we're grateful to hear about the work you're doing too. What city are you in Texas?
I'm in south of Houston, called League City, Texas. We have a school district of 44,000 kids, and I support the secondary side of, so I have 6th through 12th grade, about 24,000 students in our district and secondary. Right now, thankfully, I only have about 65 students, which is wonderful. We did a review of all the kids last year when we had to go through our emergency COVID closure, and we released 95% of our kids to go back to school. But we've got a few remaining that we're working with right now.
Okay. Do you have a degree in education, or are you a specialist in social service?
No, sir, a degree in education.
Okay. Well, thank you. And, please take a look at our website, and tell your colleagues and anyone you know. Do you know about nonviolent communication?
No, but I'm going to be looking that up, and hopefully I will be able to sit in on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a couple of people in the chat that asked about the author of Nonviolent Communication. That book, it's by Marshall Rosenberg. So yeah, it's a great book that I highly recommend to everybody.
Yeah, it is in its simplest. It's a practice, like you would practice a sport or a language or a musical instrument. It's a practice of expressing needs and feelings without blame and judgment. And we have our needs and feelings list on our website, and you can download it and share it with your friends, family, colleagues, if you work with different populations, young people, old people, because we use the word feel in our everyday conversations. I feel like taking a walk. I feel like going to the movies. I feel like having lunch. They're not feelings. They're, feelings are gratitude, gratitude, thankfulness, inspiration, motivation, disappointment, frustration, anger, worry, conflicted. These are, there's a whole vocabulary that helps us describe how we feel. And they're words that we all know. It's 2 pages. It can really change a relationship or the atmosphere in any environment. And understanding needs and feelings.
Sorry, Michael. I did just post a link to that handout of the needs and feelings. Yeah, it's real easy. If you print it out on a double-sided piece of paper, you can have it on one sheet of paper.
Yeah, so. And we also really want to encourage you to go to the Compassion Prison Project, which is this woman, Tracy Horstman. She created that video. She's a filmmaker, and she's made another video. It's on their site called The Honor Yard. And you see prisoners who are coming to terms with their ACEs and really experiencing this great sense of community, brotherhood, where it's all males. And these guys are going to come out of the prisons and be community leaders and more at some point. So we did several presentations with her recently with New York City schools. She came in and joined us and shared about her work. She lives in California, and yeah, so she's working with prisons all over the country now. She wants to create prisons that are trauma informed, that have trauma awareness. And one of the things that she points out is that people who work in prisons, especially the guards, have like a life expectancy of somewhere in their mid-late 50s because of all the stress. I mean, can you imagine having a job as a guard where you could potentially get injured or worse? And so she's like, you know, really one of our really very valued contacts in this work. Anybody else want to share?
Can you hear me?
Please.
Hello, hi, my name's Jill Baird and I'm in South Wales, near Cardiff. So I'm on the other side, not quite on the other side of the world, but a long way off. I'm retired now as an art psychotherapist and I worked in psychiatry, actually was living in Ireland then. But recently we do have a society here in Cardiff, which we haven't met now for the year because of the virus, but it's very interesting. I'm only just getting used to all these Zoom meetings. I'm finding out where I can go around the place and listen to people. It's strange, but very interesting. Yeah, and I've also been reading about the prison service and exactly your ACEs in prison and how unsympathetic our system in Britain is to the work that you've been describing. So my main interest is in education, but I'm also just as a citizen interested certainly in the prison system and how it can be improved. So thank you anyway for letting me in.
Thank you. I think you're up kind of late today, right?
Yeah, it's getting on for 1 o'clock.
Well, thanks a lot. We've had somebody, another person who's come to our presentations from London. So we're always pleased to meet people who do some traveling. We had someone from Australia recently as well. Yeah, so please spread the word, tell your friends and families. There's also on our website, I did a talk for 200 people at Google, and that kind of covers the basics, a lot of what Casey was speaking about tonight, about the ACEs.
Yeah.
But we really see this becoming like a household word where people are aware of it. And can you imagine especially for people with children who become aware that every kind of disruption is going to affect the child's brain chemistry. I had a very difficult childhood and lonely. I mean, my parents, I dedicated my book to my parents, but they were kind of absentee in many ways, and I never felt safe. And so the hippocampus in the brain is responsible for long and short-term memory. So I would hear 7 times 7 in class, but I couldn't remember what that was because my hippocampus had shrunk. That's the part of the brain. So part of learning about the ACEs stuff is just very basic, is that we come to understand about the prefrontal cortex. It's 40% of the brain. It's reasoning, logic, contemplation, empathy, impulse control, understanding and planning, things like that. And those parts of the brain do not develop in a healthy way when there's disruption to the brain chemistry. And the amygdala is the area, the fight, flight, or freeze. And so often that's something gets triggered. It can be triggered just by watching something on a television. Dare I say, a politician saying or doing things, and you're like, it brings up this fear, and the kind of fear that it brings up is the very same fear that was brought up when our ancestors were trying to avoid being lunch for a saber-toothed tiger. They would run. Their front of their brain wasn't working. They were in survival. They were trying to get away from danger. And so now today we see if somebody says something to us about oh, why do you waste so much time? It's like there goes those same chemicals that we as we become aware that we don't have to see everything as life-threatening, but often that's what takes over a lot of us.
And we have a government that thinks that if they make prison terrifying enough, that they will deter people, but it makes not the slightest bit of difference because those people are so inured to feeling terrified already. It's like almost like going home. It's just a completely reverse idea. They have no idea of the psychology and the emotion impact of these things at all.
Yeah, when I hear you say that, it makes me think, wouldn't it be great if there were psychologists that were hired to go into prison to help the inmates find their peace of mind?
Well, that and a lot more, yes.
Yeah. Well, really nice to meet. What's your name?
Jill.
Jill.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, great to meet you, and thanks for staying up into the wee
Yeah,
hours.
I might leave you now, I think.
Okay. Anyone else like to share their thoughts, feelings, organization they're with, feedback? Say hello. We'd love to meet any new people.
Hello, my name's Patrick McKenna. I'm in the Southeastern Virginia area, and I'm an attorney by trade and training. Right now I'm working and have primarily working in the policy legislative field related to human trafficking. I work with a lot of organizations who work with survivors. My previous organization was working with trafficking survivors. But part of my legal journey was also in the public defender's office. And I really wish I'd had this training back then. That was 94 to 2000, when I was dealing with a lot of people charged with all kinds of criminal activity. It would have been very helpful to them, I think, too. And my being able to more fully connect with them and where they were. And I think it's part of why I wanted to get on here tonight, because many of the women, men, trafficking victims are sitting in jail, unidentified as human trafficking victims, but kind of stuck in a vicious circle because of their own ACEs background and the things that they're going through now. So appreciate your making this information available.
Well, that's great. Are you with this organization at this time?
Virginia Coalition Against Human Trafficking. So that's a lobbying organization focused on trying to get criminal records expunged, vacated, because the survivors were not identified when they were going through the system, they're committing crimes as a result of their victimization. So fortunately, a lot of training still needed.
Well, thanks for letting us know about this work you're doing. And it just, when I hear you say that, Kathy, just one second, Kathy, it reminds me of how people are spoken to in courtrooms. The people who are child molesters, I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, Patrick, that a very high percentage of them were also molested growing up.
There's different statistics related to that. I was at a conference just last year. And part of the conferees who were putting it on were saying, wait, we don't want to be labeled as abusers. We're not abusing. We've been abused, but we're not abusers. So, and they were saying there's more research needed to be needed. But that was something that we typically understood when I was doing those kinds of cases in the public defender's office, is that I would be looking for abuse, and typically they would be turning it and being an abuser. So,
yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, it's we've given several day-long and two-day-long workshops with organizations in Atlanta that help trafficked women to rebuild and restore their lives. And so the trauma awareness it creates such a level of insight. I mean, whether you're dealing, in the legal system or working to help people who have been at the effect of traumatic experiences, understanding brain chemistry, that what happens is one caring, stable adult can make all the difference. Brain architecture, the substance of our brain can regrow. It's one of these areas of the human body that the damaged parts of the brain can regenerate. It's really exciting. And oh, by the way, just wanted to mention, has anybody seen the film Paper Tigers about this school? Yeah, if you send us an email, we can send you a link for it. It's an extraordinary film. Kathy, do you want to introduce yourself and say what you do and what you know about Paper Tigers, or anything you want to share?
Sorry, yeah, I didn't mean to be throw my hand up so much, but just a fabulous, fabulous film. So I'm a nurse, and I teach at the undergraduate level, and I developed just a 1-credit seminar course based on trauma-informed care. The ACEs study is the primary crux of the course, but we've really, each semester the students have to develop what I call a system impact project, where they have to identify a system that would benefit with trauma-informed care. And actually we just wrapped up our course yesterday, and there were 2 groups that focused on the prison system. So I thought that this was just so timely. I have our students watch a film called Broken Places. There's also Paper Tiger, and there's another film by KPJR Films that I can't remember the name.
Resilience?
Sorry?
Resilience?
Resilience, yes. They're all fantastic. So I have the students do a reflection paper on that. And it really brings to home not just the science behind this, which is absolutely fascinating because, I'm a psych nurse for many, many years. And I knew going into it back in the late 80s that there was something with these kids that I was working with, but nobody could define it. And the fact that we've gotten as far as we have, the Harvard Center for the Child Development, Dr. Jack Slipikoff is another great resource. But the purpose of our course is to really bring it in terms of healthcare and helping, because there's a lot of stigma for people who don't comply in healthcare. And so getting future nurses to understand that in many cases there are reasons, and in many cases it's because people have had ACEs in their lives, and just getting them to understand it. And students seem really receptive to it.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Can we put you in touch with a doctor at Mount Sinai who has a practice, Mount Sinai Riverside? She wants to develop a course to teach about nonviolent communication and the ACEs to help med students and residents have more understanding and compassion with their patients, but also to help them avoid burnout. So could we put you in touch with her?
Absolutely. And I'll also send you an article by a doctor at, I think it's Baylor University in Texas, that I use some of his work. He developed a real quick course for his med students. And there's great information, and it's public domain. I reached out to him and he said, feel free to share it. I'll put my email into the chat if that's the best way.
We're doing some development work for this doctor on the nonviolent communication. Have you ever heard of the NVC work? Nonviolent. It's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary language. It's in our book on the website, but the needs and feelings list, which is so essential to getting a better sense of who we are and other people. It's just, what are you feeling? What are you needing? And like, we have a piece on empathy, what we call empathic listening. And what goes on in our culture a lot is you meet up with a friend and you say, hey, how are you doing? Okay, great. But I'll tell you, the traffic was terrible today, and my office was a mess, and none of the computers were working. And what do we say? Oh, let me tell you about my traffic I was in this morning. We did one-upping or advising and fixing unrequested advice. Well, maybe you should get up earlier. So we have as teachers and students role play what we call empathy blocking, advising, one-upping, educating, discounting. Oh, you should be glad you have a job. Consoling, oh, the day's over. And so we think we're making conversation when we talk about ourselves in response to the people in our lives who share something that's upsetting to them. And the practice, the empathy practice we have, is to simply say, I hear you, and silence. Or depending on who it is, tell me more. I mean, I do coaching with couples too. And this is, when they have a disagreement, they learn to practice to say, tell me more, instead of arguing or criticizing back and it's a fight. It's a fight. It ends fights by saying, tell me more. And it's very simple. So a lot of our work is, like I said, is a practice. Kathy, great meeting you, and we'll put you in touch with the doctor we're working with. Anybody else? We have no, it's Friday night. We're not going out anymore.
What else do you do, right?
What?
What else do you have to do?
This is
Might as well.
I'm it's connection night for us.
So, Michael, I just wanted to, I'm retired from law enforcement. So I've come from the law enforcement into the family resource, the ACERT specialist. And it's just amazing the connection that you see that you didn't think you saw before. And I had, sadly, my 4th grade boyfriend used to clean my car off when it would snow because he was in the jail next door. And, you know, he was just an amazing person, but he was a product of his environment that he grew up with. So jail was his comfort for him. And as sad as it was, you knew he was safe, you know? So I just have this pull towards the whole combination of the two. Before it was like, oh my God, but it is connected. And, you know, the ACEs are just so, I'm so glad we're talking about them because I have a brother that grew up in jail, you know, and we found out at 42, everything that happened to him. And a lot of it made sense after that fact, you know, when he was older, of what he did when he was younger. So thank you for this. This was short, sweet, but I love that we're sharing. And it's just, education is the most important thing for everybody, you know, hearing about it.
Well, we're grateful to meet everybody and to be able to exchange information and ideas.
Yeah, well, I know what struck me tonight. Here, this is one supposed to be on prisons, but look at the variety of people we have here. People from just about every field of work there is here today. So that's just amazing to me. It just shows how applicable it is in every way.
Interesting, and it's being talked about. You know, you never talked about it before, right? So
Yeah.
it was always hidden. So it's just amazing, and there's so many people out there that can help and are willing to help and make a difference.
It's really I think this time is so has such an impact on people and giving them time to think about things that are important to them. And I'm going to imagine that as things open up, that people will be more involved in volunteer work and just getting the word out. And if you're involved with any law enforcement organizations, tell them about us, because we've had some interest in we're working with someone in Arizona who has something called Police to Peace, and she's got she put these bumper stickers so that it's peace, the number 2 police, because policemen and women are supposed to be what? Peace officers. So when people start thinking about policemen and women as peace officers, that changes the perception right there. Instead of especially for kids like let me see, like me, who got in trouble, thinking of the cops as peace officers, it changes the thinking, the perception. Who else?
I have a coworker who was on earlier. She is actually working in a homeless shelter right now. That's she does employment for the jail, our local jail. So I'll give her this information. But yeah, she was on with me with this earlier. So that's awesome.
Great. One of our board of directors works for an organization called CEO, Center for Economic Opportunity, and they're in 26 cities, helping prisoners when they're released to find jobs and to find housing.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So what was it? Center for what?
Economic Opportunity, CEO. If you can't find their website, reach out to us and we'll let you know.
All right, awesome.
Okay, we want to hear from more people. Please say hello.
Hi, my name is Doug Jackson, and I work for the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice. And if I could take just a second, I wanted to try and tie together what you were talking about how we see behavior and the impact of trauma. We don't do the ACEs. We do something called the STRESS, which is a post-traumatic stress disorder screener. So it goes into more depth. It has a lot more questions than the ACEs. And we administer that in all our long-term facilities. So I had an intern from Georgia State who was working with me, and we did a survey of the stress in our long-term facilities. And we were looking at one of the things stress does is it gives, does the person meet the qualifications needed for PTSD? Now, you can't make a diagnosis without a real interview, but this just says, does it meet the diagnostic criteria? And there were two sites that just really, really popped. And Jacob showed me these, and I was like, oh, well, you know, that's Macon and that's Augusta, because those are our two mental health units, right? And he was like, sorry, boss, you're right about one of them, but not the other. Macon is also our girls' facility. So we expect to see real high rates of PTSD there. But the second facility was the facility that we opened for our most treatment-resistant students, the students who would not get involved in normal treatment. And so this was a very small center where we could really focus a lot of attention and support for these students that were having real difficulty engaging. You know, they would just really kind of either act out or hide out in their cells, and which is sort of the same behavior. And that was the second site that had these really high PTSD rates. And so the bottom line that we came to realize was we were seeing these kids as they were our most violent kids, the kids that acted out most, the kids that wouldn't engage. But when we looked at it through the lens of trauma, they were exactly the same as the trauma that we easily recognized in our girls unit. But with the boys, it was very easy to say, oh, those are our most violent, most treatment resistant kids. Turns out they were also the most traumatized kids. And that we have PTSD rates at those facilities that's quite comparable to the PTSD rates of vets coming back from Iraq. So this trauma can be a very different lens to look at things and start to make sense from. And you've heard here, we talked about how we're moving from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. I work a lot with the community resiliency model, and we've added another layer onto that. And we've tried to just, what are your strengths? What's going to get you through this? And that's been a very useful lens as well. The other thing that we've done that I think has been really helpful is we've gotten trauma-informed yoga into a number of our sites before COVID. And boy, when we started out, if you would have asked me whether kids from South DeKalb County, 14 to 16-year-old guys were going to be interested in yoga, I'd have told you to take a leap. I mean, that's crazy. They really, really like it. They like doing stuff. They like the challenge of getting in their bodies. We get kids that practice in their cells so that they can lead the next session.
Wow.
It's been very engaging.
That's really good to hear.
That's amazing.
Yeah. What is the name of the facility you work at?
Oh, I work for the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice. And I'm not really at liberty to speak about specific facilities, but this was a small facility which has been repurposed, unfortunately. But at the time, it was the way you got to that facility is that you didn't engage in treatment or school or anything at our standard facilities. So that we use this facility as a place to really had a very high ratio of clinicians and staff to students. And we were able to kind of insist you're not staying in your cell. You're going to go to school, and we're going to be right there with you. And it worked until the politics intervened. What can I say?
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
And you said you use you don't use the ACEs work. You said there was something else, some sort of
the stress.
Stress.
And I ought to be able to give you what the acronym stands for, but it's late on a Friday. What can I say? But it's a PTSD screen. So
Okay.
it looks at trauma, but it also looks at a number of other things. And it looks at functioning in the last 30 days, which is very helpful.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Have you seen Paper Tigers?
I haven't seen Paper Tigers. I own a copy of Resilience.
Okay, well, can I borrow it? We can't seem to. We can send you the link for Paper Tigers.
Can I post it in the chat, or would it be better if we just do it through email with everybody whose addresses we have?
It's probably better to do it to email directly to everybody because see the principal. I found out about this principal in 2012. Somebody sent me a link. There were 400,000 hits on the article about this school. This is where kids went who were suspended. Like I said, there were gangs, meth, other drugs, bullying. And in a 3-year period, suspension days went from 796 to 135. The principal flew me out there after we got to know each other over the phone. And I gave a day-long training a week before Jamie Redford came in, who was the director of Resilience, and spent a year documenting the transformation. And he's endorsed our curriculum and our book, and he is doing amazing work. He's traveled to schools all over the country. He's like salt of the earth. His dad was a minister, and he just loves people. He loves kids. He loves people. He goes out, and to hear him speak about what happened in his school and how he sees that life can change in any school, any environment can switch, can shift. But we can send you a copy of that of it. We have an abridged version. That's it's a little over an hour, and it really covers everything that went on there. Well, thanks for sharing about your work, and it's enlightening to and encouraging. That's what's encouraging, is that sometimes we feel alone, like we know people are doing work around the world to help out, but we don't have direct contact with people that much, except schools where we go and organizations that we help. So this really meets my need for community.
It's good to meet you.
Yeah.
There was somebody that had put in the chat, I think it was Becky. You're in Arizona, I think you said. I think you're still on here, it looked like. Maybe she had to get off.
Yes, I'm in Arizona.
Oh, okay, yeah. You work for the Department of Corrections?
Yes, right now we're working at it's actually through AmeriCorps, but we're working with, it's tough. We're doing it virtually because of course of COVID.
Right.
But we're working with the preparing for release and doing all the kind of stuff that you need to do before you get out. But the one thing, I mean, and I spent 20 years in juvenile justice as well, but one thing one thing that's been so frustrating to me is that this whole idea of ACEs has been, it needed more emphasis. And sometimes in law enforcement, it's difficult to get people to really, really embrace ACEs and everything that it's about. And so I'm hoping that we can get more and more involved with ACEs and the prison system. I'm going to take all this information back to my colleagues and tell them all about it.
Yeah, the only reason you caught my eyes, but I think I saw when you registered because I recognized the email address, because my husband actually works in the Winslow complex. He's the business manager. So yeah, as soon as I saw your email, I said, oh, I know that email. So, but yeah, if you were to be looking for any way to connect with anybody, I know a few people up here too. So
thank you very much.
So yeah, absolutely keep in touch. Maybe we can help reform the Arizona system too.
That would be a minor miracle, but let's give it a shot, okay?
Exactly, might as well try.
Who wants to break the awkward silence?
So I will do it. My name is Patricia Toscano. I'm actually driving my car. I just got off work. I'm calling from Oakland, California, and I just happened to get on here, and I'm glad I did. I saw the ACE. I've kind of heard about it here and there. Several years I used to be a peer mediator for high school students. I took a program in high school and learned how to become a peer mediator. But watching this and listening to you guys, I see how important in the connection between the ACE, how ACE plays a role into what happens. And when you guys were showing the video of the guys in prison, one of the guys said, I believe he said, I hope I'm quoting him correctly. He said, "I'm a traumatized man raised by a traumatized child." So I thought that that was pretty profound, because here in Oakland, California, like right now, we have a 40% increase in the homicide rate compared to last year. And last year, we were number 12 in the most violent city in the nation. So we're up 40% in homicides. And I do believe that a lot of it has to do with these adverse childhood, help me out here. I'm learning it.
Adverse childhood experiences.
Yes, adverse childhood experiences.
Everyone calls them the ACEs.
Okay, the ACEs. So, and then I heard someone else mention about PTSD. So in the community here that I live in, and I'm born and raised in this community, it was once called the Killing Fields of East Oakland. So I'm just interested in what you guys provide, just because I know the need is great here. There's a large number of people from our community that end up in the Department of Corrections, that are on probation, parole, in prison. So we're very affected by this. And I'm just very interested in helping in any way that I can, because I know that there's a great need for empathy. One, empathy from service providers, from law enforcement, and just educators, because sometimes we're not very connected in what's going on. We're kind of there for teaching. We just need to, try to get through the day. We have 30 kids in one class. So we're unable to really pay attention to each kid individually. But I like how you guys talked about where the kids that are creating the most chaos, and they have these different ACEs. So I just wanted to say thank you after all of that. So I'm going to stop ranting. But I just want to say thank you. I'm very, very interested in this work, and I'm going to do more research on it.
Yeah, well, please stay in touch. And if you reach out to us, if you're driving now, but Exodus Transitional Community is here in New York and the upper regions of New York. It's ETC, Exodus Transitional Community NY.org. They have 100 what they call credible messengers and mentors that work with people on probation. So you might want to connect with them and see what they're doing in New York, and if they know a comparable organization in the Bay Area, or can give you some tips on how you can get that going. But we introduced the NVC to them, and we had this one guy. He grew up. He's a lot of the mentors are former incarcerated individuals, and there was one individual stayed on with us. Why says, we used to hang around the bodega, and all I had was anger. If I could understand people's behavior more and my own behavior, I wouldn't have gotten into trouble. And so we're really looking forward to working with them some more. For anyone who's with an organization, we can work with you. We're doing a lot of work remotely now. Well, all the work is really remote. And we can work something out based on whatever your organization's budget is. And we're applying for grants also. So if anyone here is with an organization and your funds are strapped, let us know, because we can put you into our grant applications and get the word out, get the word out through a grant. So please stay in touch. And who else? I don't have to be at Trader Joe's for another half hour.
Thank you.
It's been great to see how many people are wanting to learn about the subject. So this is very inspiring for us. We definitely appreciate it.
And well, Casey's parents have stopped by to watch the presentation too. There's Hilda, say hi.
Hi. Yep, I'm here in Kansas City, Missouri, and you know, this I don't work in the field, but I do volunteer for an organization called Free Hot Soup. And it's a group of people who make a hot meal, including soup. And we go to local parks and we offer the homeless a friendly meal. And so that's been really eye-opening to me. I just felt the need to volunteer for something, and this sparked an interest. So these tools that Casey and her two sisters, who are one's a therapist and one is also in grad school to become a therapist, it's been really resourceful for me to learn about ACEs, and it just helps so much to understand why and how these people that we serve every Sunday at these picnics, why they are the way they are and how they've arrived at where they are. And so instead of me just being there emotional, I want to learn how I can be more helpful. So anyway, that this, and also I have 4 grandsons, and it's so important this day and age to raise a child and all the different issues that they face. These are these tools and resources are very helpful. So I appreciate everybody's input and information. So thank you.